What happened to this crew of astronauts? Log entry 74. Cycle 19. Vessel Icarus. Unmapped sector Gamma 8. We were 5 months past the furthest navigational buoy, a four-man crew, and a million tons of carbon fiber shell separating us from the vacuum of space. For months, the only constant was the low, steady hum of the life support system and the occasional sigh of Captain Elias as he reviewed the endless stream of meaningless stellar data. Then the silence changed. It happened shortly after we detected the anomaly, a low-frequency distortion radiating from the direction of our forward sensor beacon, Sparrow 2. Jackson, our pilot and chief engineer, had sworn it sounded like a deep, rattling vibration, slow and deep enough that you could feel it in your teeth. "It's nothing organic, Captain," Dr. Chen had said, adjusting her glasses over the data pad. Dr. Chen was our resident astrophysicist, all logic and scientific reasoning. "Probably a gravitational wavefront collapsing, or maybe just a miscalibration of the deep scan mics," she continued. But when we tried to raise Sparrow 2, we got nothing. No static, no noise, just absolute deafening silence. Captain Elias made the call. We had to retrieve the beacon. It held 5 years of invaluable exploration data. We set a trajectory for Sparrow 2 and began our course to retrieve the exploration beacon. "What do you think happened to it?" I asked. "Well, we are situated in an asteroid belt. There's a lot of metals in these rocks, so the signal's probably getting scrambled," Captain Elias responded. After a few hours of Jackson navigating through the belt and casual conversation with the crew, we finally arrived at the location of Sparrow 2. What we saw made our jaws drop. Sparrow 2 wasn't simply offline. It was completely destroyed. The central dome, designed to withstand micrometeorite impacts for decades, was peeled back like tinfoil, and the primary power conduit looked less like it had failed and more like it had been violently torn out.
"What the hell happened here?"
Jackson asked.
"This thing looks like it was attacked."
"Let's load it into the cargo bay and see if there's anything salvageable from the camera feeds," Elias said. We spent the next 3 hours working on collecting all of the debris floating through the belt, using the propulsion systems built into my suit to float out, and tied the steel pulling cables around each piece of the Sparrow. I was wrapping the last few pieces together when out of the corner of my eye I thought I saw movement. I turned my body to get a better look and saw the Sparrow's black box floating behind a small asteroid. I checked my thruster gauges on my left arm and saw that I was running out of fuel. I only had 6% left. Realizing I didn't have time to debate whether or not to go, I made the decision to try to get the box. "Don't activate the winch yet," I said into my built-in radio. "I see the black box. I'm going for it." I pushed off the debris I'd finished wrapping to save what little fuel I had left. As I approached my target, getting further away from my team and my only lifeline, I started to doubt whether I'd made the right decision. My pulse started to quicken the further I floated, and I couldn't stop myself from thinking that if I got stuck out here, someone would have to come rescue me, and I would have to listen to Jackson making jokes about it, probably until we got back from this mission in 2 years. Finally, contact. I grabbed the box and used the left thruster to turn 180 degrees to face the ship. What I saw made my blood run cold. "What's taking so long, Miller?" Elias's voice broke through, making me realize that I was just floating, staring at the surface of a medium-sized asteroid. "Sorry, sir, on my way back now," I responded, still shaken from what I saw. I checked my fuel level again. 4%. I don't have anything to push off of in my current location, so I can't make a direct push towards the ship, I thought. I made the decision to head back towards the debris I had tied together earlier. If I can get back to the cable, I can just have Elias pull me in with the winch. I used the thrusters to propel myself towards the cable. As I was approaching the debris, I had a moment of doubt that I would overshoot my target, but the doubt was short-lived as I made contact with the thick steel cable. "I'm good. Go ahead and pull the cable in," I said with a sigh of relief. Elias activated the winch, pulling me and the last load of debris toward the cargo bay door. As I was slowly being pulled in, I kept thinking about what I saw on the surface of that asteroid. I was trying to convince myself that it was just my mind playing tricks on me. A year in space will do that to you, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was real. I stepped into the wide cargo bay and helped Elias pull the rest of the debris in and get it set next to the rest of the Sparrow, or what was left of it. "You okay, Miller?" Elias asked. My face must have shown what was going through my mind. "Yeah, I just thought I saw something out there, but my mind must be playing a trick on me, I responded. What did you see? Well, it looked like a footprint, or maybe a handprint, I said. Yeah, right, Jackson said mockingly through the ship's intercom. We're floating through deep space, and there just happens to be another crew out here that decided to destroy a $50 million beacon for what? To sabotage our mission? No, Jackson. It didn't look human or like a boot, I shot back, knowing how crazy I'm beginning to sound. Jackson, knock it off, Elias said sternly. Describe what it looked like, Miller. What? I asked. The imprint. Can you describe what it looked like? Size, shape, anything? Elias questioned. It was big, like maybe 2 feet long and maybe 10 inches wide, I answered. But what? He pushed. It only had 3 digits? I don't know if they were fingers or toes or whatever, but there were only 3, I said. Elias's eyes widened with a horrifying realization. He knew something. Jackson, get us out of here, Elias ordered. What's the rush? You don't actually believe him, do you, Cap? Jackson said through the loudspeakers. Now, Jackson, Elias commanded. Jackson, always the first to crack a joke, hadn't said a word on the flight back to the space station. Elias and I stayed in the cargo bay. I was still thinking about what I saw, and it seemed like Elias was too. He was staring at the mangled wreckage, strapped into the cargo bay, his eyes wide, reflecting the flickering emergency lights. It wasn't the silence of deep space anymore. It was the silence of a held breath. You know what it was, I said. I have an idea, Elias said, and if I'm right, we need to get as far from here as possible, and we need to do it fast. We finally made it back to the space station, and transferred the destroyed beacon from the ship. After we set the final pieces of the wreckage down, the lights in the space station started flickering, as if we were losing power. I'll head to the power junction to see if I can figure out what's going on, Jackson said as he started down the main hallway. Everyone else to the bridge, Elias said. As we moved to the bridge, the lights went out completely for a few seconds, but being in space, having the lights go out even for such a short amount of time, was terrifying because you don't know if all the power went out or just the power for the lights. After what felt like an eternity, the lights came back on. Jackson, what's the status on the power grid? Elias called over the comms loop. A long pause, punctuated by the metallic tapping of a wrench. I don't like this, Captain, Jackson finally whispered, and his voice was raw, unfamiliar. It feels like someone is standing right behind me. There's no thermal signature, no pressure reading, but it feels like I'm being watched. Elias, ever the stoic leader, stayed calm. That's just stress. Finish the bypass and get back here. We need you on the bridge. No, I think I heard it again. That low rumble. It's coming from the wall. Captain, it's inside the hall. The connection cut. Not with a burst of static, but a smooth, clean snip. We were in the junction chamber in under 2 minutes. The heavy access panel was open, and the air was thick with the smell of ozone. Jackson's helmet and discarded tools lay on the grating, but the chamber itself, a confined space designed for one technician, was completely empty. Dr. Chen arrived a minute later, her face pale beneath the harsh white lights. The air pressure in here dropped by half a bar instantly, she said, her voice shaking as she checked the console logs. Not a rupture. It was contained. It sealed itself off. Where is he? I choked out, scanning the pipes and conduits. Where did he go? Elias didn't answer. He was staring at the central conduit that Jackson had been working on. There was a section of polished steel, nearly a meter long, that had somehow been drawn inward, concaved like a tremendous, unseen fist had simply pressed the metal in. And on the surface of that dent, almost too faint to see in the flickering light, were 3 deep scratches, curved and impossibly long. We spent the next hours checking every inch of the Icarus. We looked in every room, even the storage units that would be too small for a grown man to fit in. Everyone to the bridge, now! Captain Elias barked through the ship's intercom. Dr. Chen and I arrived moments after each other, looking to see if Elias had found Jackson, but instead we found the captain staring out the main window. I approached him and asked, "What's going on, sir?" Captain Elias was pale, with beads of sweat running down his face. "We're not alone," he said, pointing out towards a floating asteroid. At first I didn't see what he was pointing at, but as the asteroid continued its path, Floating past the giant window, I saw it. Something moved on the surface of the asteroid. In one of the crevasses, it looked like something was trying to stay in the shadow, trying to stay hidden. I froze in place as I stared at the creature. It had to be at least 10 feet tall, with long, wiry arms and legs. The torso seemed small on the creature, like that of a human child. As I stared at this abomination, I came to a sudden realization. It was staring back. I reached past Captain Elias to the control panel and turned our external lights towards the creature. As the lights illuminated it, the creature opened its elongated mouth as if it were going to scream or even roar. But I didn't hear anything at first. I turned to my comrades to gauge their reactions, and they seemed as confused and terrified as I felt. Suddenly, I felt the same vibrating sensation that Jackson had mentioned. It wasn't a noise, but a feeling felt faintly in my chest. I turned my attention back to the creature and noticed it was holding something. It had been crouched in a sort of defensive position. With the lights on the creature, I could barely make out what it was holding. It was a white spacesuit covered in bright red blood. No, no, Elias whispered. It's Jackson, I said, in a daze. His left arm was gone, and there was a chunk from his torso missing as well. The whole looked like a bite. The creature was eating his body, and my first thought was, what is that thing? Dr. Chen screamed in horror, while Captain Elias let out a pained groan. Shoot it, I shouted at Elias. It killed Jackson. Elias immediately jumped into action, rushing to our weapons control panel and grabbing the controls. He started targeting the asteroid that the creature had apparently come from, and started sending our high caliber rounds towards this thing that had been eating our friend. When our visibility had cleared from the destruction of the asteroid, we couldn't see the creature anymore. Did you kill it? Dr. Chen asked. I don't know, Elias said. I lost sight after the first few rounds made impact, but I sprayed the entire asteroid, so I should have at least hit it once. As we continued to check the carnage created by the destroyed asteroid, I noticed movement, not on any parts of the obliterated rock, but on the edge of the wing of the Icarus. The creature had somehow jumped from the asteroid and made contact with the ship. I see it! It's on the ship! I shouted. Head to the armory. Grab the pulse rifles, Elias ordered. It can't get in, Dr. Chen said, though it sounded more like wishful thinking. It's already been on board, I snapped back. How do you think it got Jackson? I grabbed my rifle and headed back to the bridge with Elias and Dr. Chen following close behind me. We should stay here tonight. There's only one way in, I said. It won't matter, Elias said, sounding defeated. I've heard of a creature like this before. When I was in the academy, our instructor told us about them. He called them the Throck, and they are incredibly strong, fast, and agile carnivores that live on asteroids and other floating debris in space. They don't need oxygen, and they don't understand pain. They only understand their need to hunt and eat. They have evolved to be the apex predator in the vacuum of space. That night, Dr. Chen and I locked ourselves on the bridge with the captain. We cannibalized spare parts to triple lock the hatch and ran every available diagnostic. It can't get in. It can't get in, Chen repeated over and over to herself, hunched over a console displaying the security camera footage. It most likely already is, Elias said. I looked out the window. The void seemed darker, colder, studded with stars that looked like frozen tears. I no longer saw freedom out there. I saw a hunter, and we have become the hunted. Elias, silent and defeated, simply raised his hand and pointed toward the console. A faint glow, a low priority indicator light from the environmental controls, was glowing red. It was a warning that the life support was drawing too much power. And then very faintly, I heard it. Or more like felt it. Not in the comms, not in the air, but vibrating through the deck plates beneath my boots, resonating deep in my skull. Boom. 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 It was the quiet, deep rumble. And it wasn't outside. It was here, in the cold, quiet station, walking towards us, and we were listening to it approach. We all looked at each other, seemingly realizing in unison that we had locked ourselves in our own tomb. If you made it this far into the video, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would really help me out. This is the first time I've done a video like this, so if you liked it, please drop a like on the video. And last but not least, if you would like a part 2 to this story, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching the video. Hope to see you in the next one.